Great to be with everybody this Veterans Week. A big thank you to our veterans and those currently serving. We are going to be covering a series of topics, focusing really on the alignment of people analytics with operational excellence. We're going to talk about operational excellence, the relationship between the two. We're going to identify the top 9 insights that drive operational excellence through people analytics, and many of the best practices which you can implement to help you get the results you and your stakeholders are looking for. So, as you all know, we live in a data-driven world, yet a majority of companies are data and KPI underachievers. It doesn't seem like a good long-term strategy to win the market. Keith, is there a correlation between business outcomes and people data strategy?
Yeah. Hi, Chris. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, great.
Yeah. So, yes, there are. As we all know, correlation does not always mean causation. However, if your people analytics strategy is well thought out, it will have a significant impact on your business.
You know, when I think about significant impact, I think about operational excellence, right? So it's one of the key focuses of our topic today as it ties to people analytics. So let's jump right into that. Operational excellence, it is more than a buzz phrase, but what is it really, right? Kevin Dugan, the founder of the Institute for Operational Excellence, he defines it as when each and every employee can see the flow of value to the customer and fix that flow before it breaks down. You can take this definition from me, but Kevin really even does a more expanded job of describing this. So let's actually hear it from Mr. Dugan himself on operational excellence. I'm going to watch a short video here.
Continuous improvement in the office is typically focused on elimination of waste or non-value added activities. That's what we've learned, that's what we've been taught. However, in today's business market, it's all about service. Being able to respond to customers quickly, being repeatable, dependable, reliable each time the customer calls. All those lead to capturing market share and business growth, which is exactly what operational excellence targets. It does this by designing value stream flow that does not require management intervention. It just works in and day out, no status meetings, no updates, all without management, and still delivers the information to the customer. So one of the things you'll see, actually one of the things you won't see, is people getting in a room and having a meeting to try to expedite or try to get everybody on the same page or try to twist everybody's arm or cajole, influence, get their way. We've all been to those meetings. And those are meetings to try to fight fires or to solve problems or to get the production going again or get an order out to the customer. Those types of meetings will evaporate. They just won't happen anymore. What we will see are meetings where we talk about a new customer or a new potential market or a new product or anything that will generate revenue. Think of it as the meetings that generate revenue could be considered offense, because those are meetings or activities that grow the business. Meetings where we prioritize and try to run the office day in, day out, those are called defense. They put a drag on the company and use our resources not to grow the business, but actually to deter from business growth. Operational excellence focuses on only having the meetings that generate the business because we don't need management running the office day in and day out. And since they're not running the office, they simply can focus on the voice of the customer and business growth.
Pretty interesting. You have to think about it as a people analytics team or a people analytics practice within your organization. Are you playing offense or are you playing defense? Right. A Forbes article earlier this summer stated that 70% of meetings are a waste of time. Right. Another article states mid-managers spend 35% of their time in meetings each week and 50% for top managers. Love to take this quick poll here, right? In your people analytics practice, what would you do with an extra 20 hours of work time each week? Encourage you to get on your poll EV. Would you tackle more ad hoc report requests? They're always coming in. Would you clean more dirty HR data? Would you produce more Excel pivot tables? Maybe build more static dashboards and static PowerPoints that you send out to executives? Or would you research and execute ways to scale your people analytics? Or maybe you'll take some well-needed paid time off. So please respond to the poll. And if we're getting responses, let's take a look at the results.
Yeah. When it comes to offense versus defense, Chris, it seems like letter E is kind of that offensive task.
Yeah. And the tackle ad hoc report requests, which are always coming in. We hear it a lot. It's one of the kind of the leading distractors that keep people analytics teams from kind of advancing the ball, because they're always handling so many ad hoc report requests. So yeah, great. Thank you for responding to the poll. Let's jump back to this concept of operational excellence. Last year, the Business Transformation and Operational Excellence World Summit, they produced a Global State of Operational Excellence research report. And that report stated that companies that excel at ops excellence realize double-digit returns, annualized growth, which is twice the average return of companies in the S&P 500 and Russell 3000. And we see this a lot with, high-achieving organizations. And many of those high-achieving organizations have mature people analytics teams or have invested in people analytics in a way that can really help them scale. Keith, you want to?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a key area for positive outcomes, and analytics is right on task with helping organizations achieve that.
So, what are some of the common business goals that organizations want to achieve through operational excellence? Improving the company culture, business transformation, whether that's a digital transformation or otherwise, hiring skilled workers, identifying where they're at, and really improving departmental relationships, right? You get these things, these goals aligned and reached, you really begin to see, less rework, less, meetings scheduled to try to clarify what's going on, because everybody's on the same page.
Chris, I was just going to say, at a few of our client locations, we've seen that the data analysis of, say, engagement surveys or climate surveys has helped our clients identify key areas to improve that departmental relationships, which is right on task for achieving operational excellence.
Yeah, so you pull those together, you begin to see how people analytics provides insights and answers to help move the needle in a positive direction towards reaching, these goals. But to reach goals, you have to be able to execute, right? And you have to have strategies and guidelines. Kevin Dugan, again, from the Institute for Operational Excellence, has a series of guidelines to help companies achieve these goals. And two of those guidelines, workflow cycles and integration events, we really see as part and parcel to executing any people analytics strategy. So Kevin's actually going to describe these two guidelines in this brief video. And I think you're going to see a lot of alignment to how it plays into people analytics.
So in the office, there's about 9 guidelines we use to design flow. 2 of them are pretty interesting. One of them is called a workflow cycle, and the other one's called an integration event. So a workflow cycle refers to information moving down a preset pathway at a preset time. And what that means is we always have a physical pathway established where information will follow, and we establish what time information will flow down that pathway. If we know a workflow cycle happens at 2 o'clock and you send information out at 10 o'clock and you wonder when you're going to get your response, the answer is simply 2 o'clock. If you send that out at 11 o'clock, you'll get it at 2 o'clock. The beauty of this is that workflow cycle establishes that guaranteed turnaround time and eliminates this chasing information. Think about how many emails are sent just trying to find out when we're going to get an answer. Another guideline we use in the office is called an integration event. Now, an integration event means when we move large amounts of information from one area of the company to another area of the company, like releasing a product to production or closing financial statements where we have to get all the information to finance at the end of the year. An integration event deals with this by creating outputs of one area that match the inputs of the other area. The benefit of this is something called the robust handoff of information. In this case, robust means I never have to rework or clarify that information once I get it. It's in the format I need, it's in the input that I need, and I don't have to go back and call the person who gave it to me or the department area and say, hey, how do I handle this, or what did you mean by this? It's all in the way I need it. So in summary, two of the more challenging guidelines we use to design flow in the office that achieves operational excellence are workflow cycles and integration events. Workflow cycles establish guaranteed turnaround times so we know when we're going to get the information. And integration events allows us to move large chunks of information from one area of the company to another area of the company through a robust handoff that eliminates tons of rework in the office.
So these two concepts, if you think about them, think about this concept of workflow cycle, right? As a people analytics team, you have a schedule from which you're delivering information, right? You have a cadence. It's weekly, it's monthly, it's quarterly, even on demand, whether it's ad hoc or not. If you set your clients up on a schedule, right, and have a single point of reference, right? We like to call it that single point of truth from which they can obtain information. It really reduces the ad hoc report requests and sort of the chaos, if you will, right? And kind of running around trying to field all these reports or requests coming in.
Yeah, Chris,
additionally, go ahead.
I was going to say at our client sites, it's both workflow cycles and integration events are important in their workforce analytics strategy. For example, users can see through their dashboards when specific metrics are updated, and they can guarantee their freshness, as well as each of these metrics become a single point of truth for their organization.
Well, that to really bring that word that truth home, right? That's where this concept of this integration and this robust handoff comes into play. If your end users, right, your managers, your executives, if they trust the outcomes, right? If there's a common lexicon that you're using to describe what it is you're delivering, the metrics, the insights, the calculations that you're using, the source of those metrics, where it's coming from, and even the timing, that begins to create trust because it's all done one way, right? So there's not a lot of questioning, there's not a lot of explaining, and there's very little rework as a result of that. And the end goal is that it's enabling decisions that, again, that give those people managers the insights to fix the value flow before it's ever broken, right? They're able to make people decisions at the point of reference when they need to. So that's the linkage really between people analytics and operational excellence. So let's talk about some of the key people insights and how they actually enable operational excellence. We have a white paper or an ebook that's, and we'll provide you a link to this at the end of the presentation. It's also available on Zeroed In's website. But the first insight is staffing and recruiting. You know, at the core, this is headcount, right? If you don't understand your headcount, and people, it's one of the, it's a challenge, you know, because headcount means so many different things. It's calculated so many different ways. There's beginning headcount, ending headcount, average daily headcount. But until you can get your arms around this and all the demographics and characteristics, it drives so many other factors within organizations. And then there's the inflow, right? There's the hiring piece of open recs and candidates and time to fill and quality of hire. So this is just one area that is really key to driving operational excellence and getting it in the hands of your managers so they know who they have and what they need, right? The next insight is productivity. And, you know, from a productivity, you know, this is really where the rubber hits the road. It's what gets done within the organization, right? It's sales, it's production, it's, you know, it's really delivering that value to your customers, and it's the hard evidence. So being able to correlate productivity with your people metrics, whether that's, again, sales, distribution, other factors, is really key in helping managers understand, you know, the peaks and valleys in terms of driving productivity. Another insight is performance, right? It's kind of the contrast of productivity. We have performance. Performance is a little more subjective, right? It's softer. It's important that workers are aligned to the desired outcomes with the proper skills and knowledge. This all helps reduce subjectivity, but in absence of real productivity measures, performance measures, the whole performance management process, which can be quantified, measured, and monitored, is the next best thing. Keith, you?
Yeah, Chris, we've helped a couple of our clients take some of that subjectivity-ness out of their performance metrics by correlating both at quantitative values like sales or productivity to those qualitative data elements like a performance review, all, you know, giving that the clients a better way of managing performance.
Great. Turnover, right? Everybody puts a spotlight on turnover. Right? We're in the midst of the Great Resignation right now. So everybody needs to understand not just where turnover is happening and when it's happening, but why it's happening. You know, there's hard numbers, hard dollars tied to cost of turnover. This is where artificial intelligence or AI predicts turnover, right? While techniques like explainable AI, and these are two different techniques that we use at Zeroed In, help our clients identify the cause of the turnover, right? So you can implement change initiatives. Because when you can implement the change initiative and you can quantify the impact on the business and you know what needs to be changed, you can build a business case. We like to say what gets measured gets funded. And this cycle of identifying the cause, monetizing the effects, really lead to the business case for change. Keith, you had a couple comments on turnover.
Yeah, I did. I think, you know, what we've seen at a lot of our clients is that turnover needs to be accurate, needs to be timely, and needs to be detailed oriented in order to pinpoint those areas of improvements. And as you mentioned, Chris, the AI, you know, the predictive turnover certainly helps, but without that explainable AI, you know, it's hard to identify those points that can be used to change things. Both are equally important.
Excellent points. Moving along, we get to this concept of mobility or movements. I like to consider this the chutes and ladders, right? Remember the chutes and ladders game, the board game of the organization, right? You've got people going up the ladder, you've got people coming down the ladder, return to go. Understanding the path that an employee takes, to be successful, to be productive, really helps organizations, build that model of success, right? So that it can be repeatable. This is, using mobility measures as a source to predictive algorithms, whether you're predicting succession planning or you're predicting flight risk, really enables those algorithms to take a broader, it provides broader inputs to those probability scores that they're producing. Good analytics is more than just what's happening in terms of volume. So around these movements, whether it's a promotion, a demotion, a pay change, a status change, there's also, effective data transactions which come into play because they identify the timing between these events, right? Days between a pay raise, days between a promotion, those are equally as important as the fact that somebody has gotten a promotion.
Right, and with all the pre and post dating of records, we realize that pulling effective dated transactional records from HR systems is sometimes very challenging.
It is, but we're going to talk about how you can build that data pipeline and effective date records along the way so that you can create insights. So moving from mobility, we get into the labor hours and the pay, right? So there's an important relationship towards monitoring labor and pay with productivity. Go ahead.
I was going to say this is where analytics can really shine and help identify those outliers where, while alerting those key stakeholders when they occur, we've seen significant savings at some of our client sites when people can be alerted when those outliers in pay or hours occur.
Yes, and those could be areas like overtime, right? So we're overtime pay or different pay codes are hitting and reaching certain thresholds or are a percentage of X higher than normal. So being able to monitor these, again, allows you to control costs and identify the relationship between effort and outcomes. Engagement. It's a big topic today. There's a strong relationship between engagement and those operational excellence goals that we reviewed, improving the company culture, improving departmental relationships. Think about communications and trust here. Being able to measure engagement is really important, and this is not done in a quantifiable way per se. Keith?
Yeah, I think, getting back to the operational excellence, this is the workforce cycle events, capturing the sentiment and feedback from workforce cycle surveys like new hire exit surveys, climate pulse surveys is key to engagement and measuring engagement. Right.
And when you can correlate those qualitative aspects, sentiment, the feedback, and really leverage that with the quantifiable metrics, there's a lot of value there. Diversity and inclusion, also another topic that's in the forefront. Equity as well, ensuring a fair, level workplace, but also encouraging diverse thoughts and contributions from a variety of backgrounds, a variety of experiences. This is where analytics can really help organizations. One of our retail clients just went through a large diversity and equity inclusion initiative that they do annually, we were able to help them very efficiently on a scale of 40 to 1. What used to take 40 hours plus now takes 1 hour to produce. So just a quick fact there. Keith, you had a comment on that?
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that DE&I is not just about headcount. You have to include the correlations to mobility, to recruitment, to pay in order to fully manage and get the benefit from it.
Great. But headcount is the baseline for diversity inclusion, right?
Right.
So you got to get your headcount right first, which is why we always start with that with our clients, and particularly on the validation and making sure it's right. Lastly, in our top 9 category comes learning and development, and let's not exclude talent from that. You can't always hire the people with every skill needed to meet your business goals. So that's where L&D and the talent practice comes into play. There's a number of factors that this really leans in many of the other metrics. Whether it's driving performance, driving engagement, making sure that people are confident in their roles, and ultimately when they are and they're all kind of rowing at the same pace in the same direction, that's when we're seeing those operational goals being achieved.
Yeah, Chris, I just wanted to add that certainly impacted by COVID-19 and the Great Resignation, L&D has had to find new methods to performing their initiatives, and correlating their key metrics has been their compass on figuring this out over the last year and a half.
Yeah, we're seeing healthcare organizations that we work with correlate patient satisfaction ratings with the training efforts that they're using to drive patient satisfaction. Readmission rates, looking at readmission rates in relationship to training and education they're providing to reduce those rates. So again, it's while it's not productivity, they are business outcomes and business measures that they're able to correlate and influence through, in this case, their learning and development people practices. All right, so those are the top 9 people insights that we see driving organizational excellence or operational excellence. Easy to identify, a little harder to quantify, analyze, and leverage to truly meet those business OpEx goals. Many organizations struggle with getting their people analytics off the ground and, past that tactical reporting stage. So let's talk about some of those struggles. We like to frame it in terms of the 3D struggles, D being the data struggles, but there's 3 Ds that precede the data that are pretty important here. So there's disparate data. Almost every organization, at the level that's has a people analytics team or a people analytics initiative going, has disparate data, right? Even if you're trying to consolidate on a single core HR platform, there's still disparate data. So there's a need to aggregate from multiple sources, unify it, bring it together. But as we know, HR data at its core is somewhat dirty, right? It's manually entered and it's prone to error. It's not always updated on a timely basis. There's lots of backdating and forward dating. So there's cleaning and transformation that has to occur. Otherwise, you get anomalies and your results are prone to error. And then there's the delivery of the data, right? You have to put it in a format that's meaningful. You have to deliver it in a way that, in an accessible way to the right people, and securely, right? So that they're not seeing things that they shouldn't see. They're only seeing their slice of the organization, if that's what's required of them. Keith,
Yeah, Chris, let me add a couple
comments
things that we're seeing out in the field. Definitely. So when it comes to disparate systems, we've seen those internal political struggles play out between the organizational data owners and giving up some of their and sharing some of their data. So we definitely see that. And sometimes using an outside vendor can help soften those tensions. When it comes to dirty data, we often see this with the effective dated records. When pre and post dating occurs in the transactional process, it makes it struggling to find out, what a particular person looked like at a given point in time. And finally, when it comes to delivery, we suggest stop sending the spreadsheets around the organization. They get changed when you don't want them to be changed. They're just not an efficient way to tell a story.
Yeah, so you have to get your arms around these elements of data management, or you're really going to have a hard time advancing your people analytics strategy. There is one of the other facts that organizations are struggling is on the hiring side. We speak with practitioners every day who are trying to fill a people analytics role, and it's been open for 6 or 8 or 9 months. We have, with the Great Resignation, people moving around, so they lost their people analytics lead, and they're looking for ways to backfill, and that's where a vendor relationship can really come into play and help. But that said, let's talk about, let's do a quick poll, right? Before we jump into the best practices. We'd love to learn from y'all. Where are you struggling with your people analytics? Is it on the data integrity side? Is it aggregating, unifying that disparate data? Is it building out the dashboards on the delivery side? Managing the ad hoc reporting? Getting the right insights, right? So curating those right insights to those who need it? Or is it on the hiring side and trying to find resources to help advance your internal initiatives? So let's take a look at the poll results as they start to come in. All right, so building the dashboard. So on the presentation side, right? So a lot of tools out there are tools for IT people, and while HR systems, HR analysts have some technical skills, there may be some room for opportunity there. Data integrity, disparate data, also key factors, but definitely trailing the dashboard piece. Interesting.
Yeah, Chris, this is, you and I talked about this before. I was under the impression, I thought aggregating disparate data and getting the right insights was going to be the big ones, but you looked like you were the winner. You suggested building dashboards and data integrity, so you're right.
Well, let's talk how we can help get beyond those struggles. So let's go ahead and move back to thank you. So let's talk some best practices here. We're helping clients day in and day out, and you're managing that effort, Keith. I'd love to have you share some of the techniques and practices that you employ at Zeroed In that clients can do in some way, somehow, if they're not partnered with Zeroed In, but perhaps these will also help enlighten them as to the value that a partnership would bring.
Absolutely. Let's start. Yeah, Chris, absolutely. It starts with building a data pipeline, and it requires skills and tool sets such as ETL, which stands for extract, transform, and load. Extract, think of a vacuum cleaner. Think about sucking in as much data as you get or gain access to. Even if you plan to use it at a later phase, that's fine too. Don't let that slow you down if you can't get access to it right away. keep moving forward. You can always come back and add more data into your environment. The next transformation, the key is to building things that are reproducible. So each month you're not spending hours and hours doing the same cleaning, same aggregation tasks. This often is the biggest hurdle we see. And when it comes to loading data, keep in mind the process has to support large volumes of data, including historical full sets and what maybe you get once, and ongoing data changes that might come in daily, weekly, or monthly. All this goes into what we call a staging environment. Think of a data lake. And from here, you'll be turning it into those 9 insights that we talked about earlier, or even more things. All this requires certain tools and skills, such as SQL for cleaning data. We use tools like R and Python for correlating and predicting, for generating predictive analysis. And finally, preparing that data and information into what we call a star schema for the presentation layer. Chris, you want to talk about that presentation layer that's used to tell the story with the data?
I will, yeah. But before I do, in that transformation piece, Keith, your team writes a lot of rules, that you see coming in from clients' data as it's being reviewed, right, to help clean that up. And those are automated, right?
Absolutely. Again, we want to reduce that time that we spend every month of cleaning or aggregating. So making that repeatable through rules and processes is key.
And how hard do you see that? When you have clients that new system that you haven't worked with, like NeoGov as an example.
Yeah.
What are your
go ahead.
What challenge, are there challenges extracting data that clients have from different systems?
There are, each organization is slightly different and have different ways of moving data around or certain requirements. However, there are a lot of commonalities, and you focus on those commonalities. You start and then you manage it from one to the next. So we like to look at data using very simple formats like comma separated value files. And once you build that and have that on an automated process, it's pretty seamless. Great.
So you were talking about the presentation layer when you passed that back off to me. The whole presentation layer, this is the building dashboards, right? If you don't have that foundation in place, right, of the analytics model, right, where you've transformed, you've cleaned, you've produced your insights into an analytics model by different periods of time, different characteristics. We're going to talk a little bit more about that analytics model and some best practices around that. But having that as the underpinnings for your presentation, right? If you're using Tableau or Power BI or Domo or some presentation layer, you have to have the source from which you're presenting, right? But with those tools and many of those tools that I mentioned, and I'll call them, they're kind of the DIY tool set, do it yourself, you've got to build in all the security controls. You have to build all the drill down. You have to present it in a way that's meaningful. So, the tools are complex. And they're designed for IT. So as a result, the end product is not always user-friendly, discoverable, secure. And it takes a lot of time to build these. And then it takes time to maintain them. And this can be really overwhelming for most people, analytics teams. So that's where a partnership with a firm like Zeroed In and others come into play. We have built a complete presentation framework over the data pipeline that's being managed so that it can securely deliver insights, provide the workflows needed, the personalization, the discovery to help answer the right questions at the point of need to fix the flow before it breaks, right? Tying that back. So I mentioned digging into the analytics model a little more, but the data pipeline, yes, there's obviously strategy work on people insights and people analytics. We have a people analytics strategy, but at its core, if we're thinking, how do we really execute? this is key. So behind that people analytics model, if we dig deeper, is really where all your facts and your insights live. Keith, you mentioned this concept of a STAR schema. It's a model that we would recommend to clients. It starts with identifying your facts, right? What is it that we're trying to quantify? We're quantifying headcount. We're quantifying time to fill. We're quantifying number of applicants or days between a particular movement. And then we have what we call dimensions, which are the characteristics of the fact. And those dimensions are the characteristics of your workforce. There's your organizational hierarchies, there's your jobs and positions, there's employment demographics, employee statuses, as an example, and many others, exempt, non-exempt, part-time, full-time. There are employee demographics, which is, birth dates, ethnicity, their home zip code. So maybe you want to analyze the time that it takes people to commute to the office setting. So all of these different demographics are dimensional aspects that feed into the model. And prior to just once the model is defined, you're actually quantifying the facts by different periods of time, by weeks, by quarter, by month, by quarter, by year, so that it's, kind of pre-baked, if you will, across all the different demographics. So, think about calculating it, by employee status, by job position, by organization hierarchy, across all of these facts. And when you have these together, these common facts across common dimensions, it makes the presentation and the retrieval of those insights and the comparison so that you can see the relationship, for instance, of movement to turnover, right? Off of some key factor, much more easy. The whole analytics model, keep in mind, you want to allow for extensibility. If you mentioned pulling data, right? You may not use it right now, but if you have that data available to you and your model is extensible, so it can be changed, it can be reconfigured. People analytics is a journey. It's going to change over time. All right. So why is all this important, right? So why does it all matter? Well, people analytics is changing. You're probably having some limited, some success the way you're doing it now, which we'll call the old way, right? But there is a better way. There's a more efficient way. The old way, you've got disparate systems, data's locked away in the cloud, on premise. You're using the kind of those BI do-it-yourself tools. Maybe you have some limited skill sets. Maybe you have limited resources, and the data's dirty, right? So there's lots of work required to clean, to transform. You're managing all the ad hoc report requests in the meantime, and it's difficult to scale as a result. The new world is software as a service. It's the cloud. It's providing, or enabling partnerships to help automate the data collection, help automate the curation of the metrics and insights, so that they can be aggregated for quick access. They can be presented in a secure, role-based and targeted way. And they can be personalized, right, by individuals so that they see that information in the way that's meaningful to them to help them make better decisions. So it's kind of the old versus new. We, as you've seen from some of the best practices, many of these we enable ourselves, or we leverage them. So this is really what makes this all happen seamlessly.
Getting to the new world is getting to a single point of truth, right, Chris?
It is. So, I mentioned before the results in some cases where, we're seeing a 40-to-1 drop in effort required to deliver key analytics. increased confidence. Again, this is about those standards and lexicons and definitions, and it's backed up by validation that occurs during any implementation phase that you'll go through for a vendor, right? Because you're going to compare, that new world against the old world to make sure that you're getting similar results, even though that old world took so much time and effort. That's designed to eliminate the rework and save all that time. And there's dollars associated with that time saved, right? And that elimination of work. When we get into understanding, we talk about the benefits through techniques like explainable AI that identify not just what's happening and when it's happening, but why it's happening. Because if you don't understand the why, you're only guessing at what needs to change. And when you can fund those change initiatives, right, what gets measured gets funded, you can monetize the impact, produce business cases. You do that because you know the levers that need to be pulled to drive the change. And all of that results in a positive impact on operational excellence. So I trust a lot of this makes perfect sense to everybody. And I'm sure you're seeing good results from your people analytics efforts today. But there's a next level, right? There's a next level that you can achieve and a next level that you can help the organization achieve to really reach that state of operational excellence. Who wants to sit in another meeting, right? Well, we thank everybody. Keith, thank you for your contributions to the webcast. We have a couple resources that we want to leave you with. This deck will be available for download as indicated at the beginning. One of our ebooks, Top 9 People Analytics Insights, is available. Our new white paper on delivering people analytics and its linkage to operational excellence is available. As a follow-up to this webcast, we invite you to download them. And if you have any questions related to them, encourage you to reach us at zeroedin.com. And we're going to open up the platform and the floor here in the last 10 minutes for question and answers related to people analytics or presentation and otherwise. So back to you, Mark.
We do have a few questions, and a reminder, we have a few minutes, so if anybody else does have questions, feel free to type them in the Q&A box. First question, a couple of times during your presentation, you referenced the Great Resignation. And the question is, with hiring being so difficult, are you seeing companies use a solution like Zeroed In instead of hiring a dedicated resource?
We are. In fact, we just encountered a couple scenarios last week. One where I mentioned an organization has had an open rec for their people analytics team for the last 9 months. No laughing matter. But when we met with them and explained the process, and with Zeroed In, we have what's called an analytics concierge, which is part of our service. It's a supplemental team that works with clients on an ongoing basis to supplement their people analytics team. And in addition to the technology and the data science team, you think about the price tag associated with a people analytics, an analyst, somebody that's skilled depending on the level. You're in the 6-digit level in most cases from a salary perspective. So, the cost to implement a people analytics system, is typically, a 1x factor of a skilled, people analytics resource. So there's an opportunity to leverage your vendor's relationship to help fill that skill gap. And same holds true if you're losing people or somebody's moved on to another role. If you need to backfill, this is where a vendor who can really automate the process, the data pipeline, curating the facts, making it available, freeing up the time for you and your team to really help the business use the information to make better decisions.
Because I think other areas that we're seeing that as well is we're seeing clients utilizing the predictive model to help identify where the Great Resignation might hit at the individual level. And then taking that predictive model and turning it into a prescriptive model where they can then offer a lot of things like stay surveys, targeting people that might be at a high flight risk, presenting total comp statements to people that might be at a high flight risk. So things like that, where they're taking that predictive model and then turning it into some sort of prescriptive action.
Right.
Great, thanks. Last question. If a company is trying to justify a business case for a people analytics solution, what examples can you share of either dollars saved or time saved as a result of implementing a solution like yours?
One of, this gets back to the what gets measured gets funded phrase that we use commonly. Let's take turnover as a good example. The cost of turnover is typically, in low wage or low skilled jobs, upwardly to 1x salaries, high skilled jobs, possibly 2x. But you have to know where turnover is happening, and then you have to understand why it's happening so you can change it and put it in the change initiatives. So being able to move the needle 1% on turnover can save an organization $100,000 based on that X factor of the roles that they're losing. That's one aspect from a business case. There's also insights into overtime, into absenteeism, into quality of hire. These are all great business cases. They're a little harder to get your arms around, particularly when you don't have a tool like zeroed in. But in some cases, there's the show me, right? We'll show you how that works, and we'll back that up. Additionally, there's cost. There's the time and effort savings, right? The effort in building the data pipeline and managing the data pipeline, in producing reports and responding to ad hoc requests that simply, in many cases, go away through a single point of truth, through a single portal, through targeted insights and viewpoints to your workforce. So there are hard dollars also associated with labor costs on the people analytics team itself that can also feed a business case. Good question.
Okay, real quick before the top of the hour, another question just came in from Kathy. For HR teams that are just getting started with data analytics and providing details to business leaders to help make business decisions, are there metrics that would be considered standard?
There are, and the 9 insights are really good, are a good framework to leverage. On the headcount side, always starting with headcount. Headcount drives so many factors and different organizational cuts, including your looks at diversity and inclusion. Looking at average pay from a compensation standpoint, total pay from a compensation standpoint, looking at movements. The movements drive lots of factors. So you take the ins, right? The hirings, the transfers, and then you have the lateral moves, and then you have transfers out. You have separations, both involuntary and voluntary separation, which become the numerator to turnover, where headcount is your denominator. So you're calculating turnover, separations are your numerator, headcount's your denominator. Much like headcount is calculated in a number of factors, so can turnover. So we can have a point in time turnover, we can have rolling 12-month turnover. So those are a few of some of the the starting points for organizations. But I'll point you back to those top 9 insights and encourage you to download our ebook on those.
Great. Thanks so much, Chris. Keith, thanks for a great presentation. Before we wrap up, just a quick reminder to our HCI members. Today's webcast has been approved for HRCI and SHRM credit, as well as for HCI recertification. Your credits for attending this webcast will soon show up in your My HCI profile under the transcript tab. And while you're there, don't forget to check out hci.org for even more insights, as well as information on our certificates, our virtual conferences, our premium membership, and much more. One more quick thank you to Chris and Keith and to our friends at Zeroed In. And thank you, webcast viewers. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.